Hi, everybody. Today, I wanted to take some time to talk to you about quote unquote gentle formulas. The reason that I'm doing this is because Burt's Bees just announced that they will no longer be offering an infant formula. Burt's Bees is a small organic brand in the US that had a couple formula options only for a couple years. I want to say they came out just before the shortage. Bad timing. Anyway, they have announced that they will no longer be making infant formulas. The reason this is really important to parents who are using it is because Burt's Bees made a formula that was really unique in the US. Their ultra gentle formula was a partially hydrolyzed formula that's 100% lactose. And we don't really have another one like it. So I'm going to tell you what that means. I'm going to tell you how to find a formula that's really comparable so that if you're using that, your baby can transition comfortably. And I'm going to go through the other options that anybody has for a partially hydrolyzed formula. Hi, I'm Dr. Bridget Young. I'm a doctor of perinatal nutrition, founder of babyformulaexpert.com. Okay, so what is a partially hydrolyzed formula? Partially hydrolyzed or hydrolyzed is a complicated word that just means chopped up or digested. I always make the joke that in medicine we have to assign harder to pronounce words for commonly used words so that we can feel really elitist. But that's how it goes. So when you make a formula, you have to have a protein source. It's almost always in the US cow's milk, occasionally soy. Cow's milk proteins molecularly are pretty big in size. So there's a line of formulas that have those large proteins taken and chopped up into smaller pieces. These are partially hydrolyzed formulas. They are often marketed as gentle formulas. I loathe this because there's no regulation at all around those kinds of words. Gentle, sensitive, soothing, easy to digest. You guys, that crap can mean anything because it's not regulated. There's no definition assigned. So just because it says gentle doesn't necessarily mean it's partially hydrolyzed, but that is a common term applied by the formula companies. The only way to know that a formula is indeed partially hydrolyzed protein is to flip over the can, find the list of ingredients, and you will see the words partially hydrolyzed in the list of ingredients. Partially hydrolyzed milk or partially hydrolyzed whey protein. The partially hydrolyzed part always applies to the protein. So now you know actually how to find it to confirm that you're really using or holding a partially hydrolyzed formula. Let me tell you about Burt's Bees Ultra Gentle because that's the one that's going away and in many states, depending on supply, is already not able to be found. It is a partially hydrolyzed formula and the protein source that was then chopped up is whey. So I would say cow's milk, all milk, human milk, raccoon milk, every mammalian milk has protein in it, and that protein is in two categories, casein proteins and whey proteins. And you can have different amounts depending on the species, but in formula, you can also have different sources. So for example, the Burt's Bees Ultra Gentle formula, the protein source was all whey proteins that were then chopped up. So that's going to come in a minute because I'm going to walk you through what your different options are. Some of them are also just whey, and some of them are whey and casein mixes that are then chopped up. There's no right or wrong. One is not better than the other. They're all safe. Your baby will grow perfectly fine on all of them. But it's good to know the difference because you may want to choose one or the other. If, for example, you're transitioning because you can't find your current formula, so you want to look for something similar. Or vice versa, if your baby's not really doing well on the blend that they're on, so you're looking to change something in the formula, then you want to know what you're feeding so you can change it. Okay, so let's talk about potential switches if you are on this Burt's Bees formula or if you are just looking for a partially hydrolyzed formula. Here are your options. I have notes down here so I don't forget anything because I know all the US formulas by heart. But of course, if you're watching this live, it is December of 2022, so we are still suffering the shortage. So currently, we actually have some foreign formulas available in the US that are partially hydrolyzed. Awesome. So who knows how long they'll be here, but if, again, you're needing to switch from Burt's Bees, you actually have a really, really close match that's currently available because it's foreign and has been temporarily approved and you can buy it on Amazon. Even better. It is Nestle Non-Supreme Pro. You need all those words because there's some other Nestle non-formulas available in the US that aren't partially hydrolyzed. I'm going to say it again. Nestle Non, N-A-N, Supreme Pro. And it is European, so remember, the stage is important. So if your baby is under 6 months, get stage 1. If your baby is over 6 months, get stage 2. And of course, check with your pediatrician. Here's why it matches so closely. The protein is 100% whey that's been chopped up, partially hydrolyzed. So you will see those words on the list of ingredients. Next, the carbohydrate, which is totally separate from the protein. In the Burt's Bees Ultra Gentle, the carbohydrate source is 100% lactose, which is the carbohydrate in breast milk. In the Nestle Non-Supreme Pro, it's also 100% lactose. Oh my God, we're so close. So this is going to be a really close match. The Nestle Non-Supreme Pro does have both a prebiotic and a probiotic. Probiotic being healthy bacteria, prebiotic being food for healthy bacteria. The Burt's Bees Ultra Gentle didn't have either of those. So if you have the luxury of switching slowly because you have enough left that you can slowly ramp down the old as you increase the new, that will help. If you don't worry about it. It's totally safe to go cold turkey. The worst case scenario is your baby may have a couple days of gas while they adjust to having a probiotic in their diet that they haven't been having before. So again, it's never a danger. Gas never killed anybody, but we all know it can, give you a couple sleepless nights or bad naps. So the Nestle Non-Supreme Pro that's currently available because of the shortage is going to be your closest match in terms of the major ingredients. Let's talk about other options because you have a lot of other great options of US formulas that we know are going to be here. They've been here for decades. They're going to remain. And they are available, depending on where you live, in lots of supply or limited supply. The first is your Gerber formulas. Gerber's main formulas are partially hydrolyzed. They do have a few formulas with those big proteins. I call them intact proteins, but those aren't their main ones. So you want to be looking for the word Pro on the label. Gerber Gentle Pro and Gerber Soothe Pro. That Pro means it's the partially hydrolyzed version. Again, double check by flipping over the label and looking at the list of ingredients. Yes, I'm being obnoxious about that, but yes, it's so important. Okay, let's talk about the differences or similarities. So Gerber is actually owned by Nestle, so it's a really similar formula to this other Nestle formula. In both the Gerber Gentle Pro and the Soothe Pro, the protein source is that all whey proteins that have then been partially hydrolyzed. So same as the Burt's Bees, same as the Nestle Supreme Non-Pro, and then same in the Gerber formulas. The main difference between those two, the Gentle Pro and the Supreme Pro, is the carbohydrate. So the Gentle Pro is mostly lactose. It's 70% lactose and 30% maltodextrin. And the Soothe Pro is other way around. It's mostly maltodextrin. It's 70% maltodextrin and 30% lactose. So both of those are perfectly safe carbohydrates. If your baby has previously been thriving on a lactose-based formula, like for example, if they were on the Burt's Bees Ultra Gentle, if they've been exclusively breastfed and you're choosing a formula to supplement with, my personal recommendation is, oh my gosh, go with the they're doing great on lactose. Why would you change it? So let's start with that. There's other reasons you may be looking for a formula with a little bit of a lactose reduction. And if that's the case, in my, again, personal experience, I usually find a 30% reduction is enough. So that's that Gentle Pro line level. And then the Soothe Pro is just a much bigger lactose reduction. Both the Gentle Pro and the Supreme Pro have a prebiotic and a probiotic. They have different probiotics, different strains. But honestly, I'm not going to go into detail about that, and I'm going to tell you why. If you're choosing a formula for the first time or you're looking to switch, I always say focus on the first couple ingredients, the fat source, the protein source, and the carbohydrate source. Finding that perfect blend, specifically of the protein, that keeps your baby comfortable is the number one thing to focus on. And then you can talk about like, which probiotic is better? Short answer, there's no perfect one, so don't stress about it. Or like, do I need a probiotic? Do I not? Keeping your baby comfortable, priority number one. That's going to improve everybody's quality of life. Then they'll be absorbing their nutrients well, and then you can start worrying about these sexy extras. So find the perfect protein, fat, carb source for your baby, and then worry about the rest later. Okay. Oh, other huge point. there is a generic store brand version of Gerber Gentle Pro, and it's awesome and it's way cheaper. It's going to be under the term tender. Short reminder about generics, they're all identical. Not the formulas, but between brands. So, for example, Target's Tender and Walmart's Tender, identical formulas made by the same company with the exact same recipe. So, it's 100% whey that's been partially hydrolyzed. It is about 70% lactose, and it's way cheaper. So that is a fantastic way to save some money. And then knowing that at least that all store brands are the same. They're not exactly the same as the name brand, but store brands are the same between store if it's the same formula type. You can shop sales. And during the shortage, it's awesome. If Walmart is out, check Target. If Target is out, check Walgreens, CVS, Kroger, Aldi. They're all made by the same company, and their tender version is identical between all those stores. So that's another really fantastic option. So every single partially hydrolyzed formula we have talked about until now is a whey protein source that's then chopped up. You do have another kind of totally different option, which is the Enfamil partially hydrolyzed formulas. And these are Enfamil Gentlease line and Enfamil Reguline. The difference between these is they are partially hydrolyzed, so they're chopped up, but Enfamil starts with both casein and whey proteins. Roughly 60% whey and 40% casein proteins, big ones, and then they chop them up. So you still get that nice size reduction if that helps keep your baby comfortable, but the starting protein is a little different. Again, I want to emphasize, one is not better than the other. Both are safe, both are fantastic options. They're just different, which is helpful to know when you're switching formulas because you may be looking for something different, but you may be looking to try to keep it as the same as possible. So to give you a little bit of the difference between the two, Gentlease, which is a much more common formula because it's often a WIC formula, it is in New York, if you are in New York, is that 60-40 whey casein that's partially hydrolyzed, and Gentlease is a very lactose reduced formula. The carbohydrate is only about 20% lactose, and then the other 80% comes from corn syrup or corn syrup solids. And there's, I can't say how many companies do this, but there's multiple different types. So there's just plain Gentlease, which then doesn't have any sexy extras. Then there's Gentlease NeuroPro, which has the same fat, protein, all the main things that we're really interested in are the same, but NeuroPro adds in a prebiotic that's found in breast milk. And then you have Inspire, which has that, but then also adds in lactoferrin, another sexy extra protein that serves a lot of different roles that's also found in breast milk. The Inspire line is like real expensive. And so, again, I don't want that to cause you any guilt. And I don't, personal opinion, don't think that should be what drives your choice. First, find the protein, carbs, and fat that keep your baby comfortable because that's the most important thing, that they can digest and sleep easily and well and grow nicely. So that's Gentlease in its various different forms. Reguline is a really underrated formula, I think, because it's really similar to Gentlease. The protein is identical, the fat is identical. The only difference is it's less lactose reduced. So remember, Gentlease has an 80% lactose reduction, leaving only 20% of the carbohydrate as lactose. Reguline is 50-50. So they've reduced the lactose by 50%, and then 50% of the carbohydrate is corn syrup or corn syrup solids. So if you're looking for something that doesn't have a huge lactose reduction, that's a great choice. And the Reguline also has a prebiotic in it. It's different from the one that's in Gentlease NeuroPro, but it does help feed healthy bacteria, and in some studies is shown to help keep stools a nice soft consistency. So those are two great options. Why would you choose one over the other? For example, if you know you want a partially hydrolyzed formula, again, it totally depends on what you're looking for. Number one, talk to your pediatrician. They might have a great recommendation for you. Number two, just know what you're trying, obviously you know what you're trying to do. Are we in a shortage situation, so you're looking to find a replacement as close as possible to your original recipe? Well, now you know, just stick with your category, 100% whey or the mix. A reason you might want to change category, maybe go from a Gerber type formula to an Enfamil type partially hydrolyzed, or vice versa. If you're on a partially hydrolyzed formula and you think that's the good protein size, your baby's doing better on the smaller protein size, but there's still some room for improvement. Maybe changing the original source of the protein from either 100% whey to a mixture, or from this mixture that has casein to something that's 100% whey, that can often make the difference. Oftentimes babies move down to a partially hydrolyzed formula and they show a great improvement on whatever it is, but it's not as much as everyone was looking for. And now you're facing, oh, do we have to try a hypoallergenic? And anytime we can avoid putting a baby on a hypoallergenic when they don't need it is a win, especially during the shortage, because those hypoallergenic formulas are so hard to find. Not to mention they're expensive. Not to mention they smell bad. Not to mention they're all lactose free. Like, there's lots of reasons. So sometimes just making that tweak with where the protein is coming from within the partially hydrolyzed category can be enough to just help keep your baby comfortable until they will inevitably outgrow whatever this problem is that you're dealing with. That's the best part about working with babies for me, is they all end up being okay. All right, last but not least, I talked about generics for the Gerber formulas. There is a generic for Gentlease. It's the Gentle, so Target Gentle, Walmart Gentle, Aldi Gentle, they're all the same. I do not recommend choosing one of those if your baby really needs a partially hydrolyzed formula. Here is why. That formula is not all partially hydrolyzed. Only about half of the proteins get chopped up. The other half remain the really big size. Now, if your baby is using one of this, for example, Walmart's Gentle formula and doing great, don't switch. Your baby's doing great. But if you are in a situation where you're using a partially hydrolyzed formula now and you need to switch for any number of reasons, the generic Gentle is probably not a good choice initially. Go with the generic Tender formula instead. And this goes for any of my mamas out there. If you are on a WIC formula and Enfamil's your WIC contract, this is a very common scenario that I work with in here in New York because we're on Enfamil. Gentlease is a WIC formula, but if your WIC formula runs out before the month is over, so you have to buy formula, obviously the generic choice seems like the most natural choice. But I will usually recommend, don't get the Gentle, like I said before, get the Tender. So yes, you're going to be moving to 100% whey, but at least they're all going to be in that same size category that your baby has gotten used to and is thriving on. And then you can still get it for that nice cheap price. You can shop around sales, which is always a win. Again, anytime you're switching formulas, if you have the luxury to do so, please go slowly. So mix the formulas together, and over time, as you decrease the amount of the old formula, you're increasing the amount of the new formula in the bottle. I know during the shortage that this has not been possible for the vast majority of families. And again, that's safe and fine. It just increases the likelihood that your baby will transition comfortably if you can go slow. If not, again, don't panic. It's all going to be okay. Thank you so much. I haven't done one of these in a while. It's really, my kids are obviously not home, thus the silence. It's a challenge. You guys have kids, you know. Now that they're so loud and there's so much. I have two little boys. There's just a lot of battling always happening. I don't want to subject you all to that noise. It can be kind of alarming. Thank you for being here. I want to remind you that you're doing an amazing job. It's really hard to have a baby. It's especially hard to have a baby in this day and age with the shortage, with COVID, with all the things that you guys have been dealing with, and you're just doing an incredible job. Give yourself a pat on the back, give your baby a kiss on the head, and enjoy this precious time.